This is Dan and welcome back to part 2 of this flooded vehicle restoration. Now we did put this project on the back burner, so I do apologize for you folks that's been asking for part 2 for quite a while. But before we get started, if any of you did not watch part 1, you probably should do that, otherwise this is not going to make too much sense. But before we get started, let me just brief you on exactly what we did with this car. I bought this car with about 6 inches of salt water inside. The water level was right around where the seat switches are, so it was not too high. It did not get any of the computers wet, which was really nice. I took out the front seats, took out the back seats, took out the center console, the carpets, and all the plastics that are covering the whole wiring system. And give it a good wash down. I did it probably a 6-time cycle of throwing warm water with soap, washing everything out, vacuuming it out, putting it in there again, wiggling all the wires to make sure there's no salt on the wires and on the floor. So we washed everything very good. After that, I started an attempt to fix the wiring harness, and that's where we left off. Before we get started, I want to let you guys know of a mistake that I made, so you guys don't make the same mistake. I bought this car and I waited about 2 months before I got started on it. And that's a very big no-no since this is a salt water flood. So you want to get the salt out of the car as fast as you can so you can salvage the wiring system and the connectors, if it's even possible to salvage. The reason why I decided to try to salvage the wiring harness is because this was pretty much a brand new car at the time. And a brand new wiring harness for a car usually costs $4 to $5 grand or more, and that's even if the dealer has it available since it's so new. So I chose the method of crimping the wires since it's a lot less labor intensive since there's so much wires. Soldering is definitely the best way to do this, but there was so much wires and so much colors, it just would have took me a long time. I decided to crimp it. And the reason really behind the whole crimping method is if you really think about it, this whole wiring system, front, back, everything comes all together in the fuse box. And if you really think about it, if you pull a fuse out, you pretty much have no connection, okay? All the fuse is you put it in, it's under pressure, under just 2 metal plates. You pop it in, you have connection, you pull it out, you don't have connection. So a crimp, as soon as you crimp it and it doesn't want to pull out, technically you have a good connection. But you definitely want to go with a soldering system. If you guys want to do your car right, just do that, if even the wiring harness is even salvageable. I'd love to tell you that after me crimping all these wires and putting all the interior in, all I had to do is just start the car. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. Everything else did work. The dash, the radio system, all the electronics, the wireless charging, the window switches, everything worked on the car, except it wouldn't start. Now, what's the point of a car that doesn't start? So obviously, I missed something. Now, when I was crimping these wires, there's about 100 wires on one side and 100 wires on the other side. There's only so many colors that we have. So what they started doing is color coding them by shades and with like little white lines. And if you really think about it, I mean, that's a lot of different combinations and they get so close. A purple and a lighter purple or a darker purple or a dark red and a little bit of lighter red. It kind of looks like a pink. So I think I got everything perfectly aligned with every single wire when I cut those plugs off. Unfortunately, most likely I didn't, and I probably missed 1 or 2. Obviously the car didn't start. So I ended up trying to do some research. You wouldn't believe it, it was around $1,200. With the discounted price, it was under $1,000 for the front and the back. I'm talking about the whole wiring system. It's underneath the roof liner. It's in the trunk, goes through the whole car. It's all of the wiring harness underneath the dash and underneath the hood to all the components of the engine. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's a lot of wires for $900, and it's a brand new car, and this is from a dealer. So I ended up getting it. Unfortunately, I went through all that work for nothing, but I was actually really excited since now that I knew that the wiring harness was so cheap and I already bought it, I'm gonna change it. So, take everything out again. It was very labor intensive. It was very kind of simple. It's just very labor intensive since you're pulling these wires through the back, through the front, connecting to all the lights, connecting to all the computers, which the computers never got wet and nothing got damaged. So now, after I changed the whole wiring system, 2 wiring systems throughout the whole car, now the car is pretty much brand new. So now we had to deal with the seats. The seats were submerged in a little bit of water. Now, they were submerged in there a lot longer than they should have been, due on my part, since I got to it 2 months later. So the little motors were seized up. They actually moved the motors, the seat forward and back and up and down. So we ended up getting some seats from a junkyard, different color seats, and they were a little bit damaged, but we just needed the wiring harness and the little motors. Flipped over the seats, swapped all those things pretty quick, put them back in, and connected it to the main wiring harness. And everything was working smoothly. Aside from that, we took the carpets. Now, we cleaned the car, everything on the bottom. The plastics, very easy to clean, even if there was salt on it. That's not a problem. But the carpet, you want to clean it. You can't really clean it. You could clean it, in your own shop or in the garage. What we do is we just bring it to a local rug cleaning company where they actually clean rugs. And they just have a lot of equipment there. They have the special dryers, and they wash it with the brooms and power wash it. And they just have their own system. So instead of me wasting my time trying to do that, the biggest problem about doing it yourself is not washing it, because you could use a light duty power washer and power wash all the salt out of there. The problem is drying the carpet, because it's not just the carpet, you have the insulation underneath the carpet. So with the interior now, seats are perfect. They were not damaged. The wiring harness in the seats, the little motors are changed. The whole wiring harness throughout the whole car is changed. And yeah, as soon as I put that stuff in, vroom, started straight up, no problem. Now, normally underneath the car, you never have to worry about anything. The reason why is we drive these cars in winter. There's salt, there's snow, there's debris, freezing rain, you know what I mean? Nothing gets damaged, even though there's a wiring system. There's not a wiring system, but there's definitely plugs there to plug into the Cadillac inverter and some other stuff. Into the transmission, there's transmission computers and everything underneath, usually, depending where it's located. You don't have to worry about those usually, because they're waterproof anyway. Like, all the plugs underneath the car are always waterproof, because they have to be. You driving through the rain, you're gonna get water splashed up, and you know what I mean? Everywhere anyway. So, but we still had to do something underneath the car. And what that was the exhaust system. And that's due to me, once again, waiting 2 months before I even got to this car. Since this was a flood, that means the whole exhaust system, the whole pipe, got filled with salt water. And by sitting for 2 months, it was slowly, the outside looks good, but you can almost start seeing little pinholes in the exhaust that are starting to come out. They're almost like a little pinhole. You can kind of see like a little drip of water almost. They're not big holes, but I knew down the road it's gonna start rotting out. Once again, my fault for not getting to it fast. If I got to it fast, take off the exhaust system and wash out, put just power washer in there and just run water through it, you're fine. Because the exhaust system gets covered by salt anyway during the winter. And totally fine. It does get, surface rust if you don't, let's say, clean your undercoat, but that's perfectly fine. So I didn't do it. Luckily, the exhaust system from that car was like $200. We did have to get it shipped from somewhere in the middle of the States. Either way. Now, aside from everything else, we still have the engine compartment. The water level was really low either way. There is components in here that could get damaged, like the fuse box, which all the wires come together. That's another, it's not a major problem. You can just buy a brand new fuse box, but would you have to go that route either way? So aside from that, wiring system, fuse box, and all the computers underneath are good, because most of them are waterproof anyway. Like some of them, the transmission computer was kind of lower on the other side right here. It doesn't matter, it's waterproof. I even unplugged it just to double check, nothing was in there. Because it's waterproof plugs, you usually don't have to worry about anything underneath the car or any of the waterproof plugs or waterproof computers. Because that's what they're meant to be, especially the transmission computers on most cars. They're pretty much right on the transmission. I mean, you drive into, people drive through water all the time. Let's say there's a nice big thunderstorm, and people driving through water up to here where it almost gets into the car, you're totally fine. As long as you don't suck it into your engine, you're fine. So, what does happen with a car, usually salt water or not, is the starter. Since the starters are located really low, and it didn't help that it was sitting again for 2 months, but when you tried to turn over the starter by just putting a plus and minus, it was stuck. So I could have bought a new starter. It was like 350 bucks. I took apart the starter first just to see how bad it is. It was actually pretty a simple fix. It was just wherever on the bottom of the starter where the water can't drain anymore, it just rusted up that little spot where it just couldn't turn. Cleaned that up, all set, put it on, never had a problem. So aside from that, guys, I mean, there's really not much else on this car that we had to do, since we didn't have that much water, but it was salt water. Seats were gone through, all the wiring system was gone through, headlights doesn't matter, taillights doesn't matter. They didn't even get water in them either way, but even if they did, you cleaned them out. It's just a headlight. Brake system doesn't matter. ABS system underneath, even if it was really low, still waterproof, doesn't matter. None of the other fluids were mixed with any water. There's no brake water in the brake fluid. There was nothing anywhere else. So yeah, the car turned out really well. I'm really happy with it. Let me just take you around and actually show you. All right, here's the car. Bada bing, bada boom. Yeah, so it's really clean. Actually smells really clean in here, like a new car, since it is a new car. And like I said, the water was pretty much, where's the seat switches right there. That's not a lot of water. I mean, it didn't even make it halfway up the hump. So this didn't even get wet. This didn't get wet. Even if this got wet, you're totally fine. You just have to, you power wash it from the back. If you have to take the leather off and clean it. But everything was good except those little motors underneath those two seats. And yeah, this is all done here. This car's working beautiful. Yeah, really, really, really nice. Everything was put back, all the plastics. There's a lot of plastics. It is a little tricky, by the way, when you take everything out of here and there's a lot of pieces, and then you're looking at them and you're trying to figure out where the hell does this go. So let's see, guys. Let's see if I'm giving you a load of baloney. Okay, push button. Boom. Oh yeah. That's it, guys. Look at that. Bam. Working, working, and working. Damn, if you can hear that engine. Yeah, let's, you know what? Before we go for a drive really quick, let me just open the hood. Yeah, so before we go for a drive, I just want to show you what's under the hood, how it looks. There's not much under there, but I figured you want to see it. Here's the motor. So yeah, there was none of this got even touched with water. Here, down there, you can see the electric power steering, and even that technically was kind of submerged underwater, but even that is waterproof. It has waterproof plugs. I even took that apart just to double check. Everything was perfect. Here's the fuse box. If it did go above this line, or if the fuse box got submerged, you'd be changing the fuse box. But all this wiring system, everything, this whole huge system, wire here, all these wires. Now you can see the computer here. There's one, I think this is the transmission computer. Perfectly fine. Even if it did get wet or submerged, it's literally waterproof. It's sealed in aluminum. So everything else is fine. Like the AC system, it's all sealed anyway. You usually don't have a problem. Yeah, so let's go for a drive. We're back. Now it is dark. So you have to bear with me, even though this is just a little joyride, so you guys can see everything is working good. This is actually a really quick car. This is only a 2.0 turbo for a Cadillac, and I gotta say, it has a lot of snot. So yeah, so here we have it, guys. That was really nice. Drives good. Drives really good. Well, guys, we're back. I do appreciate for you guys watching this. Hopefully this is very informative for you. Hopefully you can use this information on your own cars, but just really keep in mind that each car has its own problems, and not all of them are as easy as this one. Not that this one was really easy anyway, but it's definitely a lot easier than most. So hopefully you can use this information, and have a good one. See you next time.